Space Program, leaping forward into the cosmos. Since the dawn of Kerbal kind, we have looked to the sky and wondered what sublime mysteries lie hidden in the darkness, like jewels never beheld. These untold treasures may soon reveal themselves due to the efforts recently founded Kerbal Space Program.
Oh my! I think that might have been the only copy of the orientation film. Hold on! Slides, somewhere. Welcome to your first day running the Kerbal Space Program. This campus hosts the greatest ever gathering of astronomers, astronauts, and engineers. After years of focused effort, this collection of geniuses has created several very impressive buildings. We believe we have all the necessary pieces to take our first steps off the ground. The best way to advance our technologies further is to get up there and learn by doing. All we need now is somebody to show us how to put all these parts together. Well, we also need somebody to help us out with the flying. We need a lot of help, actually. That's why you're here. My name is Paige, by the way. If you need any hints, feel free to visit me over at the training center. Everything in there is well padded, so it's a great place to get up and running. Welcome aboard! Space is the place. So you want to get to space. Have you tried rockets? Rockets use fuel and engines to create thrust, which propels them forward. When a fuel tank is empty, it is dropped to stay as lightweight as possible, allowing the rocket to go even faster. These tanks, as well as other expendable parts of a rocket, are called stages. Different stages do different things. Often the first stage is very powerful, with just enough fuel to get the vehicle through the atmosphere. The second stage usually has a low-thrust engine that, while not as powerful, is more fuel efficient. After dropping the heavier first stage and leaving the atmosphere, the second stage engine pushes the much lighter second stage to orbital speed. On a flight to space, the final stage parachutes back down to the surface, ideally in one piece. Welcome to the launch pad. As you embark on your journey into rocketry, it's important to get all the crashing out of your system here in the simulator. It really cuts down on the awkward phone calls. Today, you'll be launching into the virtual skies over KSP, where you'll learn how to control a rocket.
Okay, I can send voice in on this. I'm not going too much because I'm kind of sick and there's a lot of background noise here. But we have a flight stick installed and KSP may not know about it yet. So let's see what happens.
Let's learn how to rotate the flight camera. That way, you can see the launch from your... Great! You can also zoom the camera in and out. Nice! Go ahead and pick your favorite view for this launch.
I'm not sure what that bobbing arrow is there in the middle. It's come up a few times. It doesn't always point to anything sensible, so I don't know. It's trying to draw my attention to something. Obviously here toward the middle, but yeah.
Your rocket is ready for launch. Every good launch starts with a big green button and lots of fire. Most bad launches do too, actually.
Okay, so I hit their big green button and nothing's happening. I wonder if it saw the HOTAS. Okay, it's not responding to the stick or the throttle. So everything is doing based on screen stuff. Okay.
You can still crash, but you'll have more time to correct your course if you start pointing at the ground. Let's learn some rocket controls. When flying a rocket or a plane, we have specific terms for moving. Pitch tilts your rocket's nose up and down.
I really want to get rid of that bobbing arrow.
Nice pitch. Now pitch up until you're flying straight up.
I'm gonna want to use the stick for this, definitely. So, what do I have to do to satisfy this? So, straight up, yeah. Page? How do I satisfy Page that I was going straight up there? That was within 5 degrees or so, I think. See if I missed something here. Actually, as long as I'm backing out, let's go see if I can get the flight stick set up.
Welcome to the launch pad. As you embark on your journey into rocketry, it's important to get all the crashing out of your system here in the simulator. It really cuts down on the awkward phone calls. Today, you'll be launching into the virtual skies over KSC, where you'll learn
I'm suspecting that, like most games, it's not going to see the flight stick unless it's there when it boots. So I plugged it in while KSP was running. So let's recycle KSP real quick. Blink. Quick game. I was actually using this flight stick a couple of weeks ago, so I know that electrically it still works. Of course, it's all lit up. So, let's see. Intercept games, private division. Turn it on. There we go. See if the stick shows up. Input. Oh, I was expecting another column out here for flight stick. This is all keyboard. Uh-oh. They don't have flight stick controls enabled on this. That can't be right. How could they do a space game and not have a joystick? Input. Okay, well, there's one thing. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to fly very effectively with the keyboard here. Never have. Okay, reset all the inputs to default, and it doesn't pick up on the flight stick still. User interface, accessibility. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. Okay, so at least for today, no flight stick. I have probably missed something. Let's try this again. Stepping up. Load game.
Your new space program, leaping forward into the cosmos.
My coffee mug is empty.
We have looked to the sky and wondered what sublime mysteries lie hidden in the darkness, like jewels never beheld. These untold treasures may soon reveal themselves due to the efforts recently founded Kerbal Space Program.
Oh my. I think that might have been the only copy of the orientation film. Hold on! Slides, somewhere. Welcome to your first day running the Kerbal Space Program. This campus hosts the greatest ever gathering of astronomers, astronauts, and engineers. After years of focused effort, this collection of geniuses has created several very impressive buildings. We believe we have all the necessary pieces to take our first steps off the ground. The best way to advance our technologies further is to get up there and learn by doing. All we need now is somebody to show us how to put all these parts together. Well, we also need somebody to help us out with the flying. We need a lot of help, actually. That's why you're here. My name is Paige, by the way. If you need any hints, feel free to visit me over at the training center. Everything in there is well padded, so it's a great place to get up and running. Welcome aboard!
Okay. You know, I'm wondering if that blinking arrow in the middle was because I had rotated my camera. So I remember when I first started, I kind of slewed my camera around on the KSC. So maybe I didn't get it centered again. Anyway, back to the training center. This was just a video. Let's go on to the next one. Let's go ahead and let it roll. I want to get it checked off.
Space is the place. So you want to get to space. Have you tried rockets? Rockets use fuel and engines to create thrust, which propels them forward. When a fuel tank is empty, it is dropped to stay as lightweight as possible, allowing the rocket to go even faster. These tanks, as well as other expendable parts of a rocket, are called stages. Different stages do different things. Often the first stage is very powerful, with just enough fuel to get the vehicle through the atmosphere. The second stage usually has a low-thrust engine that, while not as powerful, is more fuel efficient. After dropping the heavier first stage and leaving the atmosphere, the second stage engine pushes the much lighter second stage to orbital speed. On a flight to space, the final stage parachutes back down to the surface, ideally in one piece. Welcome to the launch pad. As you embark on your journey into rocketry, it's important to get all the crashing out of your system here in the simulator. It really cuts down on the awkward phone calls. Today, you'll be launching into the virtual skies over KSC, where you'll learn. Let's learn how to rotate the flight camera. That way, you can see the great. You can also nice. Go ahead and pick your favorite view for this launch. Your rocket is ready for launch. Every good launch starts with a big green button and lots of fire. Most bad launches do too, actually. 10 to 1,000 meters, and then we'll learn some controls. Okay, you're a kilometer up. You can still crash, but you'll have more time to correct your course if you start pointing at the ground. Let's learn some rocket controls. When flying a rocket or a plane, we have specific terms for moving. Pitch tilts your rocket's nose up and down. Nice pitch. Now pitch up until you're flying straight up. Let's move on. Yaw steers your rocket left and right. Try it now. Now yaw to the left to straighten up. Excellent. Now for the final control. Roll rotates your rocket clockwise and counterclockwise. Try it now. That's the basics of rocket flight. Feel free to experiment with the controls. You can move on when you're ready. So you want to get to space. It's time to make a rocket. A simple rocket requires 4 crucial components: a command module, fuel tank, engine, and parachute. Let's start by learning how to add a command module. A command module allows us to control our vessel. As long as there is at least one command module on board, our rocket will be operational. This rocket will use a command pod, which can be manned by a Kerbal and is located in the pods category. Or multiple Kerbals. It all depends on the crew capacity of the part. For this lesson, we're going to make a small rocket, so we need a small command pod. Let's add this one. Great! It doesn't look like much, but it's a promising start. The next thing our rocket needs is a fuel tank. Fuel, or propellant, is an expendable resource used to power our vessels. Without fuel, we won't be going anywhere, let alone space. Let's look at the small fuel tanks. How about that one? Rocketry Weekly calls it good enough. How exciting. Notice the part is once again attached to your cursor. If you place your cursor near the bottom of your command pod, you'll see it snap into place. Then left-click to it. Now that's beginning to look like a rocket. Well, almost. We need an engine. Here at the KSP, we have 4 different types of engines: launcher, sustainer, orbital, and deep space engines. To break free of Kerbin's soupy atmosphere, we want either a launcher or sustainer engine. I personally like sustainers. What can I say? Now let's add the sustainer engine to the fuel tank. Excellent! Our rocket is looking pretty great. We just need one final touch. As is, our rocket can absolutely take flight, but if we want our pilot to survive the landing, we need to attach a parachute to the top of their command pod. Our one Kerbal rocket doesn't weigh much, so we only need an extra small parachute. Let's go with that one. Now, all we need to do is... Congratulations! You've just built a rocket. Are you sure you haven't done this before?
Let's see, have I done this before? Well, not in KSP 2. Yeah. So I just noticed that the name of the vehicle I built is Fly Safe. Yeah.
you start to build rockets, you'll want to see your designs from other angles. Let's learn how to manipulate the camera inside the vehicle assembly building.
Now, I basically just used the controls that I learned earlier, plus reflexes from KSP I didn't even realize I was using. So right mouse button drag was my camera, and scroll in and out, and then holding the middle mouse button move me up and down. Now this means that I believe in KSP 1, scrolling inside the VAB went up and down, and middle mouse button hold. I think that was, I think those two were reversed, but I'm not sure. Next time I'm on to KSP 1, I'll check that out. Anyway, so
first, let's rotate. Nice.
Yeah.
Great. Now let's pan the. You can also focus your camera at a specific part.
Ah, okay. Middle click the mouse on any part to focus the camera there.
If you want to view your rocket from the top, front, or sides, switch to blueprint mode. You can change the camera's direction by selecting different sides of the view cube.
Oh, that's neat.
If you ever get lost in the VAB, you can always reset the camera.
And the home key resets the camera. Or you can just right mouse drag to change your camera point, and it will take you back out of blueprint view. Slick. Now, I used to use an add-on to get blueprints of my vehicles, but it was always offline. This is nice. Okay, and top. Yeah. So this will come in handy when you're trying to make sure things are lined up. Well, let's make sure that home key thing works here.
Nice. Now you can get at those hard-to-reach parts of your rocket.
Well, the hardest to reach parts are going to be the ones that are clipped inside. So if I clip, I'll have a way to get at it. Good.
Your rocket's ready. Let's take it out for a little hop. Let's move this rocket to a launch pad. Welcome to the launch pad. Today you'll be flying straight up. Your rocket should do fine without any steering inputs, but if things get out of line somehow, feel free to intervene.
Okay, I am seriously impressed at what they have done for the launch pad, which is basically not the center of what goes on in KSP largely. It is such a visible part. Oh, there's that bobbing arrow saying, oh, looky here, you're not pressing the tutorial thing. It is a central part of what you do when you first come in, but it's not central to the rest of the game. But they've done tremendous detail here. This is, yeah, I like. So let's go launch. I am not skipping the countdown. It's confusing the button went back to saying go after it launched.
You've cleared the launch tower and your flight is underway. Let's learn about staging. Rockets are constructed in sections called stages. Each stage is designed for a different part of a mission. When a stage completes its job, it's dropped to shed weight.
Okay, the staging display looks familiar, although it's now going from bottom to top, whereas before the parachute would have been in stage 0 and so on. So that's nice. But it means that if I'm talking about stage numbers, that's based on the launch configuration. And if I put an additional booster on, that changes the stage numbers of everything else. So I'm 6 of one, half a dozen the other on this one.
On your right, you'll find the staging stack. It displays all of the functions contained in each stage. Every time you select the Go button, you'll activate a new stage, starting from the bottom of the stack. Each stage's fuel supply is shown on a bar next to the stage. Your active stage, Stage 1, still has a little fuel in it. When it goes dry, you'll drop that stage by selecting Go. Your first stage is out of fuel, and all it is doing is slowing you down. To drop that weight, you're going to activate your next stage. That will activate a decoupler, which will drop your empty stage. It will also activate your next engine. Once you activate a stage, there's no going back. Ready? Hit Go to lose that mass.
Or hit the spacebar, which I did out of reflex.
Congratulations! You're nearly to space, and your next set of fuel tanks are empty. Now is a good time to drop them.
Okay, she said nearly to space, but my altitude is only 11 kilometers. So, yeah, I am still halfway through the atmosphere. And, okay, I'm looking at my instruments there on the left. We've got vertical speed indicator and atmosphere, based altitude. We have a tape for altitude, a tape for velocity, which I can toggle between surface and orbit. Good. This is throttle, as I found out earlier, because I had to turn it up the first time. Okay, I like their instrument cluster, but I wish I could make it a HUD. If I'm going to be doing maneuvering, I'd really want the instrument elements to be around the HUD. Look at pictures of the control schemes for jet fighters, and if you don't like looking at real life stuff, go ahead and look at any of the jet fighter simulations for gameplay. Having all those elements together in the center of the screen, slightly transparent so you can see what's going on behind them, gives you the easiest way to do that loop of keeping track of what's going on. Anyway, so yeah, if we can reorganize the UI with mods, I will be putting up some HUD elements here, including a altitude tape and a speed tape and some sort of attitude indicator if I'm going to be flying manually. Even more so if I'm going to be flying with a stick.
Activate the next. Your capsule will now continue coasting up. All that's left to do is gaze back down at Kerbin and wonder if you remembered to lock your car. Nice work!
Their scenery out there is nicer than unmodded KSP1. I'm running some mods on KSP1. I'm running the EVE mods, and this is competitive with EVE from what I can see. EVE adds some little towns here and there. They both add some detail. They both make it look nice. I think we've got some volumetric clouds going on here, but I'm not sure. We have the same effect. It looks like a decent atmosphere. And the island is still there. I'm wondering if this is the same geometry. I'm hoping it is. You know, to have it on a different planet would be kind of crazy. But if so, there should be a landing strip over there. Oh, I see a blinking pixel. That might be an indicator, a landing light of some sort. Nice. Okay, so apparently deploying the parachute and landing is not part of this tutorial. I get into trouble a lot in these games because I will be in a tutorial and something will strike me as interesting. I'll go explore it, and it's something covered in the next tutorial.
Your capsule has a lot of momentum.
Yep.
If you're curious how high up you are, take a look at your altimeter. You're so high that you can see the curve of the horizon.
Yep, 20 kilometers, which is a long way in KSP.
Rocketry involves a lot of waiting between the cool explosions. You can speed up time by selecting the time warp controls at the bottom of your screen.
Okay, so can I do this on the keypad? Okay, so the keypad delete. Yeah, in keyboard.
Check, you're about to start falling back down. Let's slow down and enjoy the view.
I'm going to wait until I actually start coming back down again. I notice our vertical speed indicator is coming down. And looks like 40 kilometers. Yeah, we peaked at about 40 kilometers here. Let's speed back up.
Great job. You're now a master of time. Try not to use this new power for evil.
I'm a Kerbal Time Lord. Haha. Okay, so this one is just altitude and time warp.
What goes up must come down. Wind resistance will slow down your capsule's descent, but not enough to prevent it from turning into a bunch of tiny capsules when it lands. That's why we've attached a parachute.
Okay. Quick scan of the display again, getting ahead of the tutorial maybe. We have some resources here. Electric charge, I'm guessing, and monopropellant. I'm not sure we have... Oh, this capsule might have RCS jets. I mean, it's got the graphics for the RCS ports there. Be kind of cool if the starting capsule had some RCS control. Yeah. We definitely have monoprop. And there's Valentina, and there's her G-meter. Don't want to get too far ahead of this, but as long as we're looking orbital information here, so you don't need an add-on to give you your periapsis and apoapsis anymore. I think KSP 1, they've also made it so this is available. Bear in mind that I took a few years off playing this game, going and playing other things for a while, and I came back. A lot of things have changed. I'm still deeply into using Chaos, K-OS, to do autopilot stuff, which is a lot of fun for me since I'm a software engineer by heart. So some of this is things that have been added to KSP1, and all of it is, well, I will call this well integrated. I will call this well set up.
If you deploy your parachute too early, it'll be torn off. If you deploy it too late, you'll do some unplanned underground exploration. The sweet spot for Kerbin is between 20,000 and 2,000 meters.
Okay, 20,000 to 2,000 meters. And I just realized I should be monitoring my thermals at this point, because KSP has a reputation for requiring a lot of power. Yeah, and my GPU actually is hitting its higher ranges, so I have to watch out for that. Um, for reference, I'm using a AMD Radeon RX 6900 XT as the graphic card, and the CPU is a Ryzen 9 5950X. So you out there saying, "Oh, that's overkill for gaming." Well, I'm sorry. I do things other than play computer games on this computer. I'm a software engineer. I write computer programs that use more CPU and more threading. So, yeah. So maybe it's, maybe the lower end card might be slightly better for computer gaming. That's all right with me. Anyway, so the 6900 should be enough to run this neatly, and it looks good. It really does. I thought I turned on the FPS display, but I'm not seeing an FPS meter on here. When I'm streaming, I'm sending a feed at half resolution, and 30 hertz. The experience in game is this is silky smooth. I mean, if there are occasional hitches, I am not noticing them. There's definitely not stutters. So yeah, I've got everything turned all the way up. Just to make it clear, I wanted to stress this. Escape menu. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything that turns on the FPS. Anyway, back to this. Sweet spots between 20 kilometers and 2 kilometers for the parachute. Okay. So I'm guessing at above 20, there's not enough air to do it, and below 2,000, you're too low for it to be effective.
Okay, you're low enough to activate the final stage that contains your parachute. Hit go to pop your chute.
There we
Nice
go.
work. The parachute will trail your capsule for a bit without fully opening. Once you've slowed down enough, it'll open all the way by itself.
Okay, so we're at 225 meters per second. Slowing down at yeah. And we popped open at about 100 meters per second.
Your parachute is now fully deployed and slowing the capsule to a safe velocity. Congratulations! If this were real, you'd find celebratory snacks in the VAB kitchen.
I need to make myself a big red push to talk button on my desk so I can push it and talk and release it. Not a keyboard button or a mouse button, just a big red button. Okay, so getting there. I'm going to check with my fan tuning software real quick before we continue. So, I've never been able to adequately tune my GPU fan, and the AMD software is running the GPU fan at 90%, and its hotspot is at between 90 and 100 C. The core is between 80 and 90 C. This is viable, but I would prefer a fan curve that gets that CPU fan going at 100% at a somewhat lower temperature. So maybe someday I will rework the tuning on my fans by moving the whole thing into a cooler case. All of that power I was talking about earlier is all packed in a Falcon Northwest frag box. So it's a small form factor box with limited airflow and a fairly small AIO, and I've taken off the covers to help cool it. But the fact is that it had to have a small AIO, so it doesn't have a lot of cooling power. On the other side of the coin, the processor and the video card do tend to like to run hot. It makes me nervous. Anyway, let's go on to the next tutorial. I'm just mentioning this because I'm going to be nervous about my temperatures in this game. It's probably going to be running my GPU up around 100 C, a little over 100 C. Yikes. Okay, missing the ground.
Missing the ground. If you want to visit space for more than a couple of minutes, you'll need to get to orbit. An object is in orbit when it's moving sideways so quickly that even as gravity causes it to fall, it keeps missing the ground. As long as that object isn't slowed down by anything, it follows the same path every time it goes around the body it's orbiting, forever. If that object is a Kerbal, it is recommended that they bring lots of snacks. So since your goal is to move horizontally at a high speed, why not launch sideways? On Kerbin, the atmosphere is like a thick soup. You waste a lot of fuel trying to fly through it horizontally. By launching vertically, you cut through the thickest part of the atmosphere as quick as possible. Most orbital rockets begin tilting toward the horizon soon after they leave the launch pad. This maneuver, called a gravity turn, uses the planet's gravity to turn the ship and reduces the amount of fuel needed to achieve a stable orbit. When launching near the equator, your gravity turns should point toward the east, since your vehicle gets a free boost from the planet's rotation. Thanks, planet! Once a vehicle is moving quickly enough that its arc will take it above the atmosphere, it shuts down its engines and coasts to space. Once it nears the top of that arc, the vehicle needs to fire its engines a second time to keep itself from falling back down to the planet. Doing this turns that arc into a nice big circle. Congratulations! You've missed the ground.
Most of this is stuff that us seasoned Kerbal players will already know, but I really like the way they're presenting it. Nice and
When you're
clean.
making a rocket, it's often easiest to work top to bottom, tailoring each stage to carry the weight of everything above it. To give you a head start, I've already placed an upper stage, perfect for maneuvering in the vacuum of space. It could use another, more powerful stage to push it up to space from Kerbin's surface. Let's turn this vehicle into a multi-stage rocket. Anytime we intend to drop an empty stage after using all of its fuel, we connect it to the stage above it using a decoupler. A decoupler contains explosive bolts that, when activated by a staging action, eject the attached stage away from the rest of the vehicle.
Okay, so they're maintaining the convention that little arrows on the outside point from the thing being ejected to the thing ejecting it.
Add that decoupler to the bottom of your rocket. We need to attach a larger, more powerful lower stage to the bottom of your rocket. To keep things simple, I've whipped up a new lower stage in another workspace. You can bring saved vehicles and other sub-assemblies into an in-progress workspace by merging it. Let's merge my lower stage into this VAB workspace.
Okay, little subtle blinky blink in the upper right hand corner of the screen that in a large enough screen you might miss.
Out in the real world, this list would show all of your saved workspaces. Here in the simulator, I'm only showing you the lower stage you need to merge.
So this is the lower stage of the page simulator. Okay. And we're going to merge it.
Now that the lower stage has been merged into your current workspace, you can see it next to the upper stage. Select the lower stage and connect it to the decoupler beneath the upper stage to create a single two-stage rocket.
So what they're telling me is this is the user interface paradigm they're using here is what we have overall is a workspace, and we have assemblies in the workspaces. I think I heard the word assembly used at some point on a stream. And we can work with multiple assemblies in the workspace. So unlike KSP1 where it was either attached to the root part or it wasn't, and if it wasn't, it was just kind of there. And it was something you could grab and attach to it, and if you launched it was gone. But yeah, so we're centered on the area that we're working in rather than being centered on the specific stack. That's good. So now I can pick this up and attach it to the decoupler.
Perfect! Merging is a very powerful tool. Anytime you want to reuse a particular booster, lander, or other element from an existing rocket, merging saves you the hassle of making the same thing over and over.
So why am I not seeing her engine at the bottom of this stack? I want to check my staging. I really do. Okay, so I'm gonna have to. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, okay, this is the upper engine. There should be a lower engine down here. Okay. I am going to have to tinker with this for a long time to get very comfortable with it. Oh darn!
Space rockets sometimes need an extra boost. In a rare case of rocket scientists naming something well, these additional rocket engines are called boosters. Boosters are attached to the sides of a vehicle to keep them out of the way of the main engines. Solid fuel rockets make great boosters. They produce a very high thrust for a short time. Let's attach some boosters to the sides of your vehicle. We'll start by attaching 4 radial decouplers that will eject the spent boosters when they're empty. To make sure that these decouplers are evenly spaced and aligned with one another, you'll be using the symmetry tool. Great! Now when you place a part on one side of your rocket, 3 more evenly spaced duplicates will appear around the rocket. Go ahead and add 4 radial decouplers.
Still following little blinky circles to get the ones they intended.
Good. Now attach it as shown.
So she's saying here. Let's see if I can center it on her low blob.
Perfect. Now you've got 4 radial decouplers exactly where they need to be.
By the way, the detail on the VAB is nice too. Although I'm missing the little green men running around on the floor. I thought that was kind of a cool thing in KSP1. The VAB feels kind of deserted without them. Might just be training.
Let's attach those solid fuel boosters.
Okay, so we're looking for the hammer. Oh, an old friend. There we go.
Since you're still in 4x symmetry mode, Simply attach this booster to one of the decouplers you just placed. That will attach copies of that booster to the remaining decouplers.
There we go.
Great job! You've finished your orbital rocket. You can
Yeah.
symmetrically place up to 8 parts at once. A feat that could until now only be achieved by certain sea creatures.
What, like the Kraken? Okay, so I'm not done with this. I would put on something to make these a little more aerodynamic so we're not trying to punch through the atmosphere with a blunt end. Can I do that? Got to be careful about the snapping on these. So I could. So these are color coded by size. So XS and small and medium. Good lord. And large. And extra large. Cool. Anyway, let's stick with the rocket that they have us build. I expect that whatever we build in each training scenario, it won't matter when we enter the next one, it'll just have the normal thing that's there. I may try that at some point.
Before you launch a rocket, you need to plan the order of your staging events. Nobody wants to start out their flight by popping their parachute, right? Most parts that can be staged are automatically assigned to stages. Their activation order can be seen in the staging stack. You can change when staging events occur by moving them between stages. You can also add, remove, and reorder stages. Best of all, you can do this in both the VAB and in flight.
So what I'm noticing here is that we are running these engines in the wrong order. So we're going to need to move our boosters down below the main rocket and then have it have these 4 guys. So yeah, okay.
The staging order begins at the bottom of the staging stack. You want your boosters and main engine to fire together for maximum thrust. The solid fuel boosters are currently in the second stage. If we don't change anything, the boosters will ignite late and detach themselves at the same time. This would be embarrassing for everybody. So your solid fuel
There we
boosters
go.
burn very hard and very fast, so they will run out of fuel first. Even though your main engine and boosters will activate at the same time, you want to drop the empty boosters before you drop your main engine. You'll add a new stage above stage 1 to do one thing. Activate the radial decouplers to jettison your spent boosters. Now move all 4 radial decouplers from stage 4. All done. Your remaining stages are set up so that stage 4 will activate your orbital stage's engine. Stage 5 will detach the orbital stage's fuel tank when it's empty. And stage 6 will deploy your landing parachute.
So,
Thanks to you, this rocket is ready to fly.
so when I was moving these stages around, it wasn't really clear when I had it grabbed or not. And it also wasn't clear that to create a new stage you have to explicitly hit the plus sign rather than just dragging it between them. But it didn't take me but a couple of seconds to work that out, so not perfect, but good. Okay, and now I'm going to observe that in some cases, if your boosters have enough delta V and you've got enough control over your rocket, moving your sustainer engine up so it doesn't fire until the boosters are done may get you more total delta V. We can show that in KSP 1. I am betting there's a way to show it here, although I am not seeing any delta V displays. So yeah, that's the next thing I'm looking for, is a running display of how much delta V I'm going to be getting out of each stage and out of the rocket as a whole. Because I've seen more staging problems solved by noticing that I'm getting less delta V.
We're ready to light this candle. In this flight, you're going all the way to orbit. I'll walk you through the process of launching, executing a gravity turn to get moving sideways, coasting to orbital altitude, and doing a final burn at the top of your arc to establish a stable orbit.
Okay, so now that we're on the launch pad, I'm seeing the delta V of the stage here. 720 delta V out of my first stage. This is not... Okay, I can't expand the other... I can't see what the delta V is on individual stages. And this looks like the total delta V for the rocket. Okay.
Before we begin, let's talk about the nav ball. The nav ball shows your vehicle's orientation relative to the horizon. The blue half of the ball represents the sky, and the brown half represents the ground. The level indicator at the center shows your vehicle's orientation. When you turn, the ball turns. When you roll, the ball rolls. Assuming you want your rocket pointed at the sky, you'll want to see lots of blue on the nav ball. If you get confused, remember this rhyme. If the nav ball's brown, you're going down. At launch, you want all your engines at maximum thrust, which means you need to set your throttle at 100%. Your solid fuel boosters are way ahead of you on this. They have no setting other than full throttle, and they can't be shut off once they're lit. Once you hit the go button, they'll go full tilt until they run out of fuel. Still, your main engine's throttle is in your control. You can see your main throttle here. Left shift gradually increases your throttle. Left control gradually decreases your throttle. Z and your fuel levels are visible within the staging stack. Right now, you can see that your main engine and 4 boosters are all topped off and ready to rumble. It's time to go. At the start, all you need to do is fly straight up. I'll check back in with you once those boosters are empty. Good luck!
Okay. So throttle control is the same as KSP1, except of course that I can't activate my stick throttle. And by topped up, 2 out of 2.8 tons in each one. Okay, well it's topped up enough. So let's launch this and go straight up. I am hoping that my SAS control will work. Although aerodynamically this rocket should just stay pointed where it's going.
Every stage has its time, and this one was a little too soon. Let's try again.
Hey, that stage was out of fuel. Okay, so I waited until those solid rocket boosters were out of fuel before staging, and she called it too soon, so I'll wait for her to prompt me this time.
All right, before we begin, at launch, you can see your main throttle here. Your fuel levels are visible within the staging stack. Right now, you can see that your main engine and 4 boosters are all topped off and ready to rumble. It's time to go. At the start, all you need to do is fly straight up. I'll check back in with you once those boosters are empty. Good luck! All right, the solid fuel boosters are empty. Let's drop them. It's time to start your gravity turn. A gravity turn uses the pull of the planet's gravity to help bend your vertical ascent into a horizontal arc. It's the first step to entering orbit. For our first flight to orbit, we're going to start our gravity turn up to where the air is thin, at an altitude of around 10,000 meters. To show you where to aim your rocket, I've placed a target marker on your nav ball. You're going to yaw towards the east so that the target marker is in the center of the nav ball. Your vessel and nav ball should look like this example video if you're performing the gravity turn correctly.
Okay, I am going to limit my angle of attack a bit here. Despite the fact that
Oh no, we're out of fuel and simulated stranded. Let's try again.
Okay, so apparently I have to heal this over really hard to get this within the tutorial time. We should be starting the gravity turn a bit lower, I think, given the small amount of fuel here.
All right, we're ready to light this candle. Before we begin, at launch, you can see your main throttle here. Your fuel levels are visible within the staging stack.
I am going to...
Right now, you can see that your main engine and 4 boosters are all topped off and ready to rumble. It's time to go. At the start, all you need to do is fly straight up. I'll check back in with you once those boosters are empty. Good luck!
Okay, I'm going to try cutting the throttle a bit during launch here. Once we get clear of the area, and we'll see where we're... So we are running at fairly high acceleration. I'm going to establish a bit of a gravity turn early on. Oh, and if you stage too soon, she starts it over. So we have to wait for the prompt to stage. But yeah, I'm thinking start the gravity turn earlier and cut the main throttle a bit.
All right. Before we begin, at launch, you can see your main throttle here. Your fuel levels are visible within the staging stack. Right now, you can see that your main engine and 4 boosters are all topped off and ready to rumble.
Okay.
It's time to go. At the start, all you need to do is fly straight up. I'll check back in with you once those boosters are empty. Good luck!
Okay. Flying to 10,000 feet and slamming it over to the side is probably not the best way to do it, but yeah, I'm going to start a gravity turn earlier and otherwise follow her instructions. Okay, so at what point does she actually tell me to... There we go.
All right, solid fuel. It's time to start your gravity. You're going to yaw towards the east so that the target marker is in the center of the nav ball.
Now...
Your vessel and nav ball should look like this example video if you're performing the gravity turn. Way to make Kerbin's gravity work for you. You're now on track to establish an orbit.
I am not good at flying with the nav ball like this. Okay, so...
Your current stage's fuel is empty. Let's drop it and activate your deep space engine. Great job! Your rocket is on its way to orbit. As you gain experience, you can make your gravity turns more efficient by starting to tilt your rocket soon after liftoff. Adjusting course with a series of small corrections instead of one big one will leave you with a lot more fuel when you get to orbit. Turning immediately after launch requires a very stable rocket. So if you ever have trouble keeping the pointy end up, you can try the simplified wait and turn method we use today.
I can't get the... Oh, I'm fighting the SAS, aren't I? Yeah, it helps if I'm not fighting the SAS along. So we're We're doing her gravity term, but she's having us point downward now? Oh, because yeah, all that faffing around I did. I'm going to try this again. This time I'm not going to fight my sass.
Right now, we're on a ballistic trajectory. If no further adjustments are made, your rocket will eventually fall back down to the ground. Our objective is to turn this arc into an orbit. The process of turning your trajectory into a circular orbit is called circularization. Partial credit to the rocket people on that one. It does have the word circle in it, but it's really hard to say.
What, circularization? It's easy enough.
When planning and executing orbital maneuvers, you'll want to switch to map view, where you can see every part of your current trajectory.
Okay, so just to be clear, M for map view, or there's an icon down here. Got it.
The blue arc passing through your vehicle is its current trajectory, the path your rocket will follow if you don't touch the controls anymore. Our goal is to make that arc into a circular orbit. After you've coasted nearly to the top of this arc, you're going to point forward, and then you're going to ignite your engine. If you time this burn right, you'll never quite get to the top of the arc, as it'll keep widening in front of you until it wraps all the way around the planet.
Now, I've seen advice to start your burn at a certain time from your apoapsis, and then tweak your burn so that that time doesn't change. So if that ETA is getting smaller, increase your throttle, and if it's getting larger, decrease your throttle. I don't know. That's kind of a way to do it. It's a way you can do it by eye. That's good. When I automate things, of course, I just say, well, if I were in a circular orbit, what would my velocity be? Now apply thrust to correct that error. I'm big into autopilots and automation and trying to do controls, and I'm not deep into controls theory anymore. I've forgotten what I learned, and what I learned wasn't bleeding edge anyway. So I tend to do a lot of proportional controllers and stacking them up to get the effect of a PID controller through a proportional controller of something that's a proportional controller of something. Anyway, you get what I'm saying here. But all in all, when I'm designing these things, I tend to keep track of what is my actual goal. So thus, for circular orbits, my goal is to have the right velocity. So accelerate based on your velocity error. And it's probably not as efficient. Anyway, so yeah, their advice of fire before you get to the top and keep your time to apoapsis constant is a good one. So, ghosting nearly the top of this arc, and we're going to point forward and ignite the engine. So
Let's
enough
break
digression.
that down a little more. The top of your arc has a helpful tag in map view. It's called the apoapsis, abbreviated as AP. You're going to max out your throttle before you pass this point.
So right now we are at 35 seconds before the apoapsis. We can see down here in the lower left the altitude and the time until we get there. So what I'm going to try to do is keep this ETA at about 30 seconds or so. So I'm going to have my SAS control trying to point me prograde. And now we're just going to jump around on the throttle a bit.
You're all lined up and ready to go. The next step is to go max throttle. It can take time for your arc to fully expand into an orbit. If you look closely at where your trajectory meets the ground, you'll see it moving toward the horizon.
Okay, I am not all lined up. I will be soon, but you notice I am not pointed at my orbital prograde here. So I don't want to actually throttle up yet. But she's saying throttle up.
Once your
There we
trajectory
go.
reaches all the way around the planet, you'll see another marker on your orbit. This is the periapsis, or PE, the lowest point in your orbit. It'll always live on the opposite side of your orbit from the apoapsis, or highest point. By burning prograde near your apoapsis, you increase the altitude of your periapsis, the lowest point on your orbit.
So I paused there. She thought I was lined up, and you notice when it unpaused, I snapped to that, so it could very well be that under the hood I was lined up, and it just hadn't reflected on the ball yet. We'll have to look at that. Yeah, keep our eye on that. So we are currently thrusting at 100%. You notice our time to apoapsis has already gone up.
Here's the most important thing to remember about setting up an orbit above an atmosphere. Your periapsis must be higher than the atmosphere, or your rocket will start to slow down every time it dips into the upper atmosphere. On Kerbin, that means every part of your orbit must be higher than 70 kilometers.
Okay.
Keep your eye on your trajectory for now, and I'll tell you if your periapsis is safely out of the atmosphere.
And I'm going to cut the throttle back to see if I can get my apoapsis time to be somewhere in the, I'd call it 30 to 40 second range. So let's unpause. What I really want to do is adjust my throttle so that this time isn't changing. 36. Okay, it's going up, so I need to cut throttle a little bit. Thank goodness we have SAS on day one. Okay, so I want to cut the throttle, bring this down a bit. Now, I could drag this back and forth with my mouse much easier than using my keyboard. Hey, and there's our periapsis coming out of Kerbin. Got the throttle way back because I let it get away from me. Climb up to my apoapsis a bit. The closer you are to apoapsis, the more efficient this burn is going to be at just raising periapsis. So let's cut the throttle and coast up a bit. So now we are actually in orbit. Our periapsis is above 70 kilometers. But she hasn't noticed it yet.
Okay, your orbit is fully out of...
There.
You did it! You're in orbit! This is when I'd usually tell you to look under your seat in the simulator, where you'd find a delicious celebratory treat. Sadly, since the vending machine in the astrodynamics lab broke down, it has gotten very difficult to hide snacks anywhere at KSC. Feel free to take a moment to admire your first orbit. In a way, you've given yourself a mind snack, which is way better than the edible kind anyway. Right? Right?
Oh, if this was a role-playing game, I'd have a side quest right now to repair the vending machine for the snacks. Okay, well that was kind of cool. I am able to use my throttle here to... There we go, and there's closer to circular. 165, 161. Looking pretty good.
Right now, we're on a ballistic trajectory. If no further adjustments are made, your rocket will eventually fall back down to the ground.
We
Our
just did this
objective
one.
is to turn this arc into an orbit. The process of turning your trajectory into a circular orbit is called circularization. Partial credit to the rocket people on that one. It does have the word circle in it, but it's really hard to say.
I must have misclicked. Let's go ahead and orbit this one again.
When planning and executing orbital maneuvers, the blue arc pack... Let's break that down a little more. We're paused at just before you're all lined up and ready to go.
Okay,
the next step is to go max throttle. It can take time for... Once your trajectory reaches all the way around the planet, you'll see another marker on your orbit. This is the periapsis, or PE, the lowest point in your orbit. It'll always live on the opposite side of your orbit from the apoapsis, or highest point. By burning prograde near your apoapsis, you increase the altitude of your periapsis, the lowest point on your orbit.
Okay, so I got within 30 seconds here. Now you notice I'm having to hold full throttle to keep my ETA from going down any further. So, yeah. That's the thing, you get too close to it, you might not be able to hold that. So, again, looks like 35 seconds for this particular rocket. It's about right. And I let it get away from me again, so let's cool our jets, let this come back down. I'm looking to do about 35. Okay, let this come back down. Periapsis is coming up.
Okay, your orbit is fully out of the atmosphere. You did it! You're in orbit! This is when I'd usually tell you to look under your seat in the simulator, where you'd find a delicious celebratory treat. Sadly, since the vending machine in the astrodynamics lab broke down, it has gotten very difficult to hide snacks anywhere at KSC. Feel free to take a moment to admire your first orbit. In a way, you've given yourself a mind snack, which is way better than the edible kind anyway. Right?
Yep.
Right?
And that's where I hit replay before, in tutorial. Okay, so we've seen the gravity turns, and their advice has me going a little bit too high and cranking over too hard, so I want to come in lower. Their orbital advice is good, especially for manually flown. I think there may be ways of doing those maneuvers that are more fuel efficient, but it'd be a little tricky to do them. Let's take a look at our next thing here. We've done missing the ground, so orbits are weird. There we go. Orbital changes. Fun one. Well, fun concept. I don't know. I haven't looked at the tutorials yet. One of the things I like to tinker with in the automation is
orbits are weird. Remember your orbiting baseball? What if you wanted to make its orbit higher? Well, it's a baseball, so grab your bat and try to hit the ball to a higher orbit. Your first thought might be to try to deflect the ball upwards. Unfortunately, hitting the ball upward bends its orbit so that it hits the ground before it can return to you. What you need to do is hit the ball in the direction it's already moving, adding to its already high velocity. Now that you've sped the ball up, why isn't it flying any higher? It just keeps whizzing by at the same height it always did. After all, I said that making it go faster would make it go higher. What gives? The ball is actually going higher, but it's going higher on the opposite side of the planet from where you're standing. You've raised its orbit, and you've learned the first lesson of orbital maneuvering. Your actions affect the opposite side of your orbit. Weird, huh? So So your ball is moving faster, but it's still passing you at the same height. How do you get its orbit higher on this side of the planet? Now that you know how changes in velocity affect the other side of your orbit, you've got all you need. By adding velocity to the ball at the highest point in its orbit, you raise the lowest point in its orbit and make it circular again.
Okay, so they are maintaining this fallacy that this is weird. You know, it's weird. You know, you accelerate here and it changes the thing on the other side of your orbit, and oh, that's so weird. It's not. Here's why. If you are in an orbit, okay, which means it's not intersecting the ground and it's not flying off to infinity, it's going to be an elliptical orbit that will always come back to where it is. So if I change my velocity here, okay, change my velocity here, wherever I go, I'm going to come back to here. So there's nothing I can do here that will cause me to not come back here, except by hitting the ground or going out to infinity. So it has to change something somewhere else. Okay? So it's not weird that accelerating here doesn't change my altitude here. So if you burn forward, you're going to add energy to the orbit. Well, this is where you have to learn about orbits. If you increase your orbital energy by increasing your velocity around the orbit at some point, it's going to make it bigger. It's going to increase the area enclosed by the orbit. Okay? Well, I am not speaking precisely mathematically. Literally what it does is, as you increase your angular momentum around the body, your velocity forward, it's going to increase your major axis. Your ellipses have a major axis which is left to right and a minor axis which is top to bottom, if you look at it this way. So if we burn forward, anywhere in the orbit, you burn forward, has the effect of stretching it. Now, it may also rotate it, but it stretches it. If we burn outward, we're not changing the angular velocity, but we're saying that instead of, at this point in our orbit where we are, instead of going upwards, the next time we come through, we're going to be pointed outwards. So we're changing the direction here by thrusting outwards. Well, if this is an ellipse, you still have to fit an ellipse. So the effect is, well, let's say if we're burning at the top, we're at the top pointing this way, and we've got this guy this way. If we burn upward, it means that it's going to shift the ellipse over. So now the part of the ellipse is pointing the direction we're going. So if you burn outward, it's going to move the ellipse off to the side. Burn forward, it's going to extend the ellipse. Okay? And if you burn normal, it's going to tilt it. So all of these have different effects. Burning forward will tend to increase the distance at the other side of the ellipse. Now it'll do all sorts of things, turning and yada, but the net effect is going to be you burn forward to make the other side go out, and you burn outward to make 90 degrees around go out, and you burn normal to make 90 degrees around go that way. So every maneuver you do on orbit, its major effect is either 90 degrees or 180 degrees around the orbit from you. Okay. So that's just something you need to learn. It's like saying you accelerate so that you will have gone farther in the future. Everybody knows about acceleration and velocity and position. So acceleration doesn't change your velocity immediately. It's over time. It doesn't change your position immediately. It's over time. Same thing with orbits. Thrust now changes things later. It's not weird. I wish people would stop saying it's weird. Dun, dun, dun. Next tutorial.
An equatorial orbit is good, but if you want to travel beyond Kerbin, you will need to manipulate your orbit. Let's start with something simple. expanding in orbit. We do that by increasing the value of our apoapsis. Let's get a good view. Remember how you circularized your orbit by increasing your forward velocity? To raise your orbit, you'll just do more of the same. It's time. Now that we're pointed the right way, we can increase the throttle and watch our orbit expand.
And here we go.
Ooh, cut the throttle. If you overdo it, you'll leave Kerbin's orbit nice. That maneuver raised our orbit on the other side of Kerbin, so we will enter high orbit there. Waiting to reach a specific point can be as eventful as watching the neon stripes on your rover dry. The paint job will be worth it, but isn't it better to rush to the end? Skip ahead to the good stuff using a time warp. Like I said earlier, the highest point of our orbit is called the apoapsis. The lowest point of our orbit is known as the periapsis. By default, your camera is focused on your vessel, so if you can't see either of these points, adjust your camera. Scroll the middle mouse wheel to zoom in and out. Double-click an object to center your camera on it. Click the middle mouse button to enter FreeCam. Press Home to reset the camera to your active vessel. Excellent! You can time warp to any position on your trajectory by selecting a point on your vehicle's current path, and then selecting Time Warp to Point.
Okay.
Now you're way up in the sky, so high that if you circularize your orbit now, you'll be in high orbit. Wow, the black starry void looks so small from here.
Now, I think it was home to recenter. Yes, there we go. Now I tried double-clicking on Kerbin, and it didn't center it there. Okay.
From command pods to space probe cores, a lot of critical rocket parts use electric charge. You'll want to design your rocket so it can generate and store EC.
Yeah, I saw that resource earlier, and I figured it was electric charge. Okay.
Most rocket engines generate electric charge while active, but we'll still need a way to keep our batteries full while coasting between maneuvers. Solar panels convert Kerbal's light into EC for our rockets. Small solar panels can just be placed, but large solar panels are delicate and must only be deployed once we're out of the atmosphere. I've equipped this rocket with 2 deployable solar panels. Here's a hand crank. Get to work.
Okay, yeah, it's the same kind of look as KSP-1. It's this box on the side.
Just kidding. There's a handy button that opens all of them with a single click. Give it a try.
So, where is this button? Oh, it's over there. Way on the left. Took me a moment to find it. I'm glad they did the little bouncing circle.
Great! The solar panels are now extended. Light-tracking solar panels only rotate on one axis, so we may need to reorient our ship to point them fully at the sun. Let's make sure the panels are getting direct sunlight by rolling our ship a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not stopping a little bit. I'm gonna roll this sucker so they get full on. There we go. And in fact, let's have our SAS point us to prograde. And we will keep our roll proper. There we go. Why hasn't this gone away?
Excellent.
There.
The solar panels are soaking up all of those sweet photons and giving our rocket some much-needed EC. You can see the status of any solar panel within the part manager in the electrical parts menu. You can either access the app directly by clicking the app button, or you can right-click a part to directly access it in the part manager.
Okay, so it's down on the app bar. Okay, let's get this out from behind the tutorial. Electrical. These are batteries. So panels, I can unextend the panels if I want. Let's not do that.
Getting EC is one thing, and storing it is another. Most command pods have a small battery, but many missions will call for additional EC storage. When we're traveling far from the sun or going to the dark side of a planet, more batteries means more peace of mind.
So there's no stats under the batteries in the electrical area. Interesting.
At some point, the crew will run out of snacks. Did you know a Kerbal is 99.9% more likely to crash when hungry? That's when it's time to head back down to Kerbin, a planet known for its plentiful snack options. First, let's get a better view for this operation. Remember how we burned prograde to raise our orbit? To lower our orbit, we burn now flip retrograde, the opposite direction to our rocket's movement. When we get into position to fire our engine backwards, we'll slow down. All right, the rocket is aligned to retrograde. Increase the throttle and burn until our trajectory is just past the atmosphere.
We can do that.
As we decelerate, watch what's happening to our periapsis. Once it enters the atmosphere, this rocket is on a path back to the ground. Don't ease off the throttle yet, though. We're going to keep burning until our trajectory intercepts the ground. This should give us a good idea where our capsule will land.
Really, no aero braking on this.
That's
There
it.
we go.
Let's stop our burn.
Now, normally I would...
Now that we're on a collision course with Kerbin, we need to turn that collision into something more survivable. This process of crashing without dying is called landing. Our upcoming stage will activate a decoupler, dropping the engine and exposing a very important heat shield. Why don't you do that now?
Okay, normally I would only lower my periapsis down to about halfway in the atmosphere, and that gets me a shallower angle coming in, and it seems to aero brake a lot more efficiently, especially if you're coming in from a long ways away, which we're not doing here. But you're coming in from a long ways away, you only want to go through the very top of the atmosphere. Maybe if you're coming in from outside Kerbal's SOI, you may need to do several aero braking passes. You might only lower yourself to 55 or 60 kilometers. Coming in from here, I'd lower to 30. And that's enough to slow you down and actually get you impact right there. In this case, she's having us set our trajectory all the way down to the ground, so it's going to be kind of a steep entry. The other thing I would do would be to hold on to my engines, and once I got into the atmosphere, maybe burn like crazy to decelerate. Let's see what they are going to be doing.
Great! We're on our way down and our heat shield is exposed. Have you ever wondered what a marshmallow feels like when it catches on fire? You're about to find out.
Also, burning your engine to decelerate closer to your target, I believe, is more efficient. I know that there's an Oberth effect where burning at the bottom of the gravity well does better things than burning at the top. So for instance, if you wanted to get into very far orbit, instead of orbiting close and then expanding it one step at a time, what you want to do is get into a low orbit and then all in one jump push your apoapsis out to your target orbit and then circularize. Let's see what they have us doing. Okay, so we've got a end of tutorial here. And we are going to go down and betting next tutorial they will do this. Okay, training center. We have done the orbits are weird. So I'm thinking that they're just assuming that's going to dovetail in with the deorbit we did it before. Wait a minute, have we? I don't think we have done a landing aside from the initial up and down. Okay. Anyway, orbital transfers. This is where things get complicated.
Orbital transfers. As you know, the faster you go, the higher your orbit gets. If you get moving fast enough, your orbit may cross the orbit of some other object, like a moon or a planet. The closest celestial body to Kerbin is the Mun. If you're looking for somewhere else to fly a rocket, the Mun is a good choice. The real trick to getting there is timing your departure so that the Mun captures your vehicle at its highest point. If you mistime your departure, you may miss the Mun entirely, which creates a lot of paperwork. Let's assume you've left at the right time and the Mun is there to meet you. As your vessel approaches the Mun, it enters a zone in which the Mun's gravitational influence on your orbit is stronger than Kerbin's. This zone is called the Mun's sphere of influence. You've had to go very quickly to escape Kerbin's gravity, much too fast for the Mun's low gravity to capture you. If you don't slow down, your vehicle will speed past the Mun and be flung farther into space. Remember what I said about paperwork? Once you're in the Mun's gravity well, the best way to slow down is to fire your engines backwards until your trajectory becomes a nice, stable orbit. Now you're a moon of the Mun! Ha!
Okay. I'm liking the way they've organized the tutorials with a quick video to start, followed by some hands-on in little chunks.
Our rocket is in orbit over Kerbin and ready to fly. The mission today is to, drumroll please, intercept and orbit the Mun.
There it
To
is.
be captured by the Mun's gravity, our vessel must cross into the Mun's sphere of influence, or SOI, the zone in which its gravity is stronger than any other celestial body around it.
Okay, and here is where physics in KSP differs from physics in real life. In real life, of course, you are always being tugged on gravitationally by everything. So there's no sharp line of entering the SOI of something. Now there is something we call a sphere of influence, which is that particular line where you can approximate your orbit by saying I am in orbit around the Earth or Kerbin, and you've got a nice ellipse. As you get closer to Mun, if we were doing real physics, it would perturb your orbit more and more. So your best estimate of your thing is I'm in an elliptical orbit around Kerbin, perturbed by Mun. Close enough to Mun, you're in an elliptical orbit around Mun, perturbed by Kerbin. The SOI in real life is kind of a wobbly shaped thing that is that particular line where it's better to think of it as orbiting around Mun, perturbed by Kerbin. It's a gradual thing. As you go across that line, the change in your path is very, very, very subtle. In Kerbin, they make it a hard line. They say each object has a sphere of influence, which is a radius, so it's a sphere rather than this slightly non-spherical shape. And if you're outside it, you're in orbit around Kerbin. And if you're inside it, we're going to do an elliptical orbit around Mun. So you keep your velocity as you cross over the line, but suddenly your acceleration goes from pointing toward Kerbin to pointing toward Mun. So it's a discontinuity in the second derivative. So, bump. Anyway, so yeah, that simplifies things though, because now it means that you can do all of the math based on I am in an elliptical orbit around a body, and I can ignore all the other perturbations, which means that this is actually something you can do without spending years and years earning a degree in astrophysics. Now, if you want to do full Newtonian physics, there are add-ons for KSP1 that do this. And I haven't tried them despite having done that kind of math before because I don't find the perturbations to be fun. If I had a full-time autopilot, I could leave running on all of my vessels. So if a satellite, for instance, if I had 10 satellites, they could all be running their own autopilots all the time. I would have fun writing the autopilot that would keep myself in my designated orbit. Anyway, this means that it's going to be simple for us because once we transfer...
We're going to create a maneuver plan to figure out when and how long we need to fire our engines to intercept the Mun.
Okay, once we transfer from one SOI to the other...
Great!
We just do simple math.
Now here's a new trick.
Simple
math. We can select any object as a target in map view. Targeting gives us useful information and enables new tools. Once we've targeted a celestial body or other object in space, our maneuver will provide closest pass and plane angle information. This can be very helpful for meeting up with someone or something in space.
Okay. So yeah, once we get to Mun, it's just a simple Kepler orbit at that point. So select any object as target, and she hasn't told me how to do that yet.
Right now, our camera is following our vessel as it orbits Kerbin. Let's adjust our camera until we can see the Mun. Then, right-click to target it.
Right-click to target. There we go. Mun is a terrestrial planet. Set target.
We want to place this maneuver plan with two things in mind. First, the Mun is in motion. We can't aim our spacecraft where the Mun is right now. Instead, we have to aim where the Mun will be after our vehicle has coasted all the way from Kerbin.
So our transit time is going to be based on this trajectory that we do. So how long it takes for us to do the trajectory, but that's going to be based on where the Mun is when we get there, which is based on the time. So if you were automating this, you'd have to iterate on the solution a bit.
Second, remember how increasing velocity raises the opposite side of our orbit? Since we're placing this maneuver plan where we intend to start our burn, we should place it on the opposite side of Kerbin from where we intend to intercept the Mun. Placing a maneuver plan usually involves making a best guess, and then fiddling with the maneuver until you get an intercept. Fortunately, you've got a crack navigator with you today. By my calculations, we'll want to put our maneuver here.
Okay.
Excellent! We've just created a maneuver plan. While we could find out if our departure timing is correct by just picking a direction and maxing the throttle, a maneuver plan tells us in advance how much delta V we'll need, how long we'll need to burn, and in what direction our vessel will need to point during the maneuver. Grab and pull the arrows to plan a burn along that direction. This maneuver is pretty simple. We want to burn prograde and expand our orbit.
Okay, so we have 6 arrows, and it's not clear to me from this display which one is prograde and which one is up. So I'm going to grab an arrow and start to move it. Ah, there we go. That's better. Okay, they color-coded them, and it made it a lot clearer. And they also put the icon on it. So let's get our apoapsis out to match Mun's orbit. Now, side note, when we get there, because we are going to be going the same direction, but we're in an orbit with a lower periapsis, our velocity when we get there is going to be slower.
That maneuver event towards the end of your trajectory is exactly what we're looking for. It tells that if we execute this plan, we'll intercept the Mun.
Yeah. Now, think about this. The Mun is going to be coming up from behind us, or are we going to be coming up from behind the Mun? I am absolutely not sure about this. I think if we have an orbit that intercepts here, I think we join the Mun from the front. So this isn't showing me my trajectory in here. And I do not know yet whether going out, is this entry or exit? Clearly one of them is entry, one of them is exit, and they've got going out and going in. I'm going to guess, based on the fact that if we were coming down, we would need to burn retrograde to slow down, that we are going to be moving slower in orbit than the Mun, so the Mun will be overtaking us when we get there. Now, if I increase this just a little bit, okay. Now, I don't know how close to Mun we're going to get here. But that's good enough. I'm not going to go all the way in. Actually, I could adjust this until we just barely get an intercept. Well, she might get upset with me. Let's hold it there.
If a maneuver looks right, but we're not getting the intercept we expect, we can change the starting position of the maneuver by grabbing and dragging the middle of the maneuver plan along our orbit. It's very common to refine a maneuver plan by adjusting both the position of the maneuver and the direction of the planned burn.
Yeah, I don't know what trajectory looks like going past Mun yet. If we do this... Okay, see there? We're not there. We come in and now we have a... Okay. Let's use this burn right here. Kind of centered. It looks like we're just going to kind of dip in into a chord off to the end. Now, a free return trajectory would have us coming in and going around the backside. Oh, let's see if we can get one of those. So it's still, I can't tell what kind of orbit I'm going to be in when I get there. What I'm hoping to do is get something that's really clearly a retrograde orbit around Mun. I think maybe I have to be... Let's have my apoapsis farther. Oh, no, interesting. That shows me as impacting. Oh, I could fiddle around with these for a long time. Anyway, let's take a look at this.
If we don't want to maneuver at all, we can delete the plan, either by right-clicking the gizmo and selecting delete, or through the burn timer.
Now notice here, this is saying that we are going to go past the Mun, and we're going to come back and impact. So we do have a free return trajectory. I'm suspecting that I actually had a free return earlier. Oh, we don't delete the plan, so yeah, okay.
Maneuvers are invaluable when leaving Kerbin. Feel free to come back and practice anytime.
Oh, she doesn't have us fly it yet. Woo!
We've got a maneuver plan that intercepts the Mun. Now we just need to execute that maneuver and fly to the Mun ourselves. Whenever we have a maneuver plan, a burn timer will appear. The timer shows you how much time is left until we need to execute the maneuver. I've paused the simulation for a moment, so this number won't count down quite yet.
Okay, so she has us launching to Mun, and we are going through a orbit around the, looks like around the backside. Yeah, we're going on a prograde trajectory, and we come back, we have higher energy. So this is what happens. We're passing behind Mun, so it's pulling us forward. Oh, my camera is not reversed. We're pulling us forward this way, which gives us additional energy in our orbit around Kerbin. Thus, we come back at a higher periapse than where we left. So this is an example of a flyby that's increasing our orbit. Now, the free return trajectory that Apollo used, you do it the other way. You arrange to pass in front of the moon, which reduces your energy and brings you back on a trajectory that is lower than your departure orbit. So if we departed from a higher orbit, we would come back in a lower orbit or even an impact. You saw earlier I had a free return that brought us back to impact. This is kind of important because if something goes wrong and you don't do anything, you want that spacecraft to come back and be able to aerobrake and land even though you've lost all of your engines or whatever. So, yeah. Less important in a computer game where we can hit the revert to launch button. Okay, so maneuver plan will have a burn timer. Change from KSP1. KSP1, your timer for your node is the time at which nominally if you applied the delta V all at once, boom, it would be perfect. But because it's going to take you 20 seconds, you'd have to say, oh, I'm going to burn 10 seconds before that. KSP2, start burn in, takes into account how long it's going to take your engines to accelerate your craft by that delta V. Go look up Tsiolkovsky's rocket equation to see how you calculate delta V based on your vessel's mass and delta time, because there's a log in there. Because your acceleration changes as you lose fuel. Anyway, so that gives us a exact time to burn, so we can watch that. We don't have to do math in our heads. Yay!
The timer also tells us how long we'll need to burn our engines at 100% throttle in order to complete the maneuver.
And here's where I really wish my HOTAS was working.
Now let's take a look at the nav ball. A new marker has joined our old prograde and retrograde markers. This is called a maneuver marker, and it shows us the orientation of our planned maneuver. We'll want to make sure that this marker is in the center of our nav ball during our maneuver burn. Luckily, we can aim at this maneuver marker by selecting the maneuver button on your SAS controls.
Okay.
Now your vehicle is properly oriented. And through the magic of SAS and more math than I'd like to admit, our vessel is properly oriented.
It is quite a lot of
We're
math.
still far from our planned burn, so let's speed things up.
So I was looking for this to be in purple, which fazed me for a second, but hitting it down here on SAS control did the right thing. Now, the fact that our altitude is kind of wobbling up and down here makes me wonder, because we haven't sped up yet. Yeah. Over ground. Right. Yeah, it's wobbling up and down because the ground is wobbling up and down. Duh. Okay, 101 kilometers over sea level, and we are at orbital velocity, and there we are. So we only have ground and sea. So, speeding things up.
While we could rely on our reflexes to time warp at the perfect moment, a less stressful alternative is warping to a specific point in our orbit. See this button? Select it to warp automatically to the moment before our maneuver begins.
Okay, so I was a little worried I was going to have to go do a warp too here. This is nice. Okay, so burn timer warp.
Departure burn, here we come.
We have our SAS controlling our attitude.
Great! We've exited just before our maneuver burn, and I've paused the simulation once more. After we select continue, remember to wait until the countdown reaches 0. Then we'll go full throttle until our burn timer reaches 0. Then cut the throttle quickly to avoid overshooting our target.
Now, my habit has been to wait until we had 1 second left in the burn, and then roll the burn down along with that time. That's easy. That's super easy to automate. But here I can cut the throttle with a single button, and I'm flying manually. And I think I can time it by eye to hit it pretty close. So let's see how well these old reflexes can do. Continue.
Okay, get ready to hit the throttle.
And I'm ready. Okay, start burn. There's our timer. 21, 20. Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Watch the burn timer. We want to stop our burn once it reaches 0.
Okay, so it had this little pole here, which made it really nice. I didn't have to watch the numbers. And now we've got the staging timeline here, which has been, I think, repurposed for a burn timer. Ablapsis is heading out.
Everything's looking great. Cut the throttle. Great work! You've successfully executed a maneuver, and now we're on our way to the Mun.
She had me cut it 1 second early, and you'll notice that my trajectory hasn't finished inflating to the plan yet. We are short by a long ways. Now, we do actually have an intercept, but this is not the intercept that was planned, because she had me stop a second early. Now, flying manually, I would have moved my attention from the burn timer to this, and I would have throttled back as we got close, and I would have matched the trajectories rather than trying to hit the burn timer. That's the downside of these. Do it based on instrument burn time rather than on the instrumented where you're going, is that you can build up errors along the way, and the right time to end the burn comes and you're not done and you need to do a little correction. This is why I really like air controllers. Okay, tutorial complete.
It's going to take a while to reach the Mun, but don't let the wait fool you. We're now moving faster than any Kerbal has ever flown before. When we enter the Mun's sphere of influence, we'll be going way too fast for the Mun's gravity to capture our vehicle.
Okay, so we're going to need to burn retrograde at Mun to get captured. We've got about 1,700 meters per second of delta V available to us. That feels like it's going to be enough.
To orbit the Mun, we'll need to burn retrograde once we're inside its SOI, or sphere of influence. This will slow us down enough to keep us from being whipped into interplanetary space.
Take a look at the map real quick. So when we entered this, instead of leaving us in the trajectory we were in at the end of the previous tutorial, it left us in the planned trajectory. So we are going to be in this trajectory, which is a we're going to get a prograde orbit around the Mun, hyperbolic, which means this is going to be, again, it's going to be a flyby that is a slingshot effect. So you notice we're going to come back, and yeah, what I was saying before, boom, our periapsis around Kerbin is going to be higher if we don't do anything. Of course, we're going to get into orbit, so all this is none the wiser. But this is, it just, I don't like these kind of orbits. I prefer the ones with free return, but that's just, you know, I already did, Paige.
Let's start by time warping until we're within the Mun's sphere of influence. That's the sphere within which the Mun is the primary gravitational influence on your vehicle. Let's get a little bolder with our time warp this time.
I've mentioned how I jump ahead in tutorials. Yeah. Okay, so 1000X. Nice.
Farewell, Kerbin. I'll miss you.
I'm gonna need to flip my camera at some point. Forgot I'd done that. Whee!
Welcome to the Mun's sphere of influence. Let's slow down to normal time so we can create our capture maneuver.
Now, take a moment here. A big improvement over KSP1. We can see the sphere of influence of Mun. We had a good idea of where in our trajectory we were entering it. We had a nice big bubble, so we knew how big it was. I always thought on playing KSP1 that the sphere of influence of Mun was much smaller than this. But almost every time I've entered orbit, it's like, oh, it's way out here. Oh, okay. Well, now with this more intuitive notion and this nice display, it's really cool. So now we need to go back to 1x time warp.
Did you notice that we've got a periapsis above the Mun, but no apoapsis? That's because we're going too fast to complete an orbit before sailing past the Mun. Don't worry, we have time to adjust. Our objective is to slow down enough so that both apoapsis and periapsis are within the Mun's sphere of influence.
Okay, fun fact. This is a hyperbolic orbit. And if you look at the math for it, it's the same as an elliptical orbit, sort of, with some changes. You still talk about the semi-major axis of the hyperbolic orbit, but it's negative. Yeah, and the semi-major axis of a parabolic orbit, which is right in the line between the two. So you're burning, you're burning to turn one into the other. At that moment, when you go from an elliptical to hyperbolic, right in the middle of there's a parabolic orbit, which is the orbit where you go to infinity, but you have zero velocity when you get there. And I believe its semi-major axis is infinite. So we go from small number, bigger, positive infinity, negative infinity, then come back down towards zero. So there's actually a more reasonable way to do this. If you want to avoid infinities, you talk about 1 over the semi-major axis. You often divide by SMA. So, and that 1 over the semi-major axis goes from big number down towards 0 as you get a more eccentric orbit. And at a parabolic, 1 over it is 0, and then you get negative numbers. Negative 1 over a, increasing as your hyperbolic orbit gets sharper. So hyperbolic orbits have neat things like, well, you have the periapsis, which is still there, and then you have what is the angle. It goes out this way, and asymptotically, it's a line. And what is the angle between those lines? So talk about that, the turning angle of a hyperbolic orbit. All sorts of neat things. And we use a lot of hyperbolic orbits when you want to do flybys to do slingshot maneuvers to either accelerate or decelerate. And the math on that is wacko crazy. I haven't even done it yet. And it's been how many years? Anyway.
Remember the rule of orbital opposites. Because we want to lower your apoapsis, we'll need to place our maneuver plan at the periapsis. Let's get started.
Yeah. So I've talked about the apoapsis being beyond infinity. You know what I mean. So open the context by left-clicking the orbit near the periapsis icon. Well, what I want to do is put it at the periapsis. I don't want to put it near the periapsis. Create a maneuver plan.
In order to reduce our apoapsis, we need to slow down by burning backwards, or retrograde. This is a little like deorbiting over Kerbin, but we're going to stop burning before our trajectory meets Mun dust.
Okay, so we select it. And I am going to swing my camera around a little bit. And we want to do this. Yeah, and as we do this, of course, our orbit's doing weird things because we are still swinging out back to Kerbin and coming back here and doing all sorts of wacko things. But keep going, keep going. Notice our SOI exit point is maneuvering around. Keep going. There we do it. So I want to make myself go into a circular orbit. The way to do that is...
Maneuver plan set.
I'll stop
Next
when
up,
she says.
let's make sure we're pointed where we need to be.
Okay, so we hit the SAS control here.
If the maneuver is right and we're pointed in the right direction, now we need to time warp to the right position.
Okay, we are aligned. And now we time warp.
And we're on our way. Almost there. When the countdown reaches 0, throttle up to start your capture burn.
Okay, so here we go. And I'm just going to watch the 4 dots here because those came on both for starting and stopping the burn. As I said, I would much prefer to stop my burn based on the results rather than based on the timing. Notice this little circle here. This is because I'm using the middle mouse button to free cam around, and it shows you what's in the middle. So this puts me centered on Mun, but leaves me in free cam. 6. There we go, and the lights are lighting up. 1, boom.
Keep burning until the burn timer reaches 0.
2, 1.
Fantastic. That was some fancy flying. Looks to me like you're about ready to try this for real.
Okay, and what they want you to do is throttle up or down exactly when this last bubble lights up. Just for reference. We're close. And yeah, I'm ready to fly this thing for real. Uh-oh. Okay, my coffee mug is
It's
empty.
going to take a while to reach the Mun, but don't let the wait fool you. We're now moving faster than any Kerbal has ever flown before.
Okay. I do not want to repeat that. It's kind of mispronouncing Mun. So is it Moon? Mun? The Mun? I'm trying very hard to just use the word Mun. They're talking about going in orbit around the Kerbin. So we're going to Mun. So we have finished all of the training scenarios now. So, now we want to do a real mission here. I have a small problem here. I have a coffee fault. I need to go refill my coffee, so 30 seconds? Anyway, I am excited. Whee! So, first vessel we want to build. What is it I want to build here? I want to start small. Ooh, that's the last cup of coffee out of that pot. I don't know. Okay, I'm back. Let's see. So there's no career yet. It's all sandbox. So we basically build what we want to build. Let me take my little pop-up off of there. I'll be using Emacs for post-it notes and such. There are no add-ons. There's no contracts. There's no career mode. There's no plot lines. There's just build rockets and fly them. I'm good with that. I am totally good with that. So, VAB. Let's build a rocket and move it up. Okay, so let's see here. Pods. What have we got? Favorites, all the parts you like. Okay, so you can star favorites. It started off with a bunch of them that are starred. Our initial favorite list has a tin can and some Methalox fuel tanks. Recognize these numbers, FLT 100, 200, 400, 800 series. I love the 800. I use the 800 a lot when I fly. And we got Methalox engines. So let's see. The Terrier, which is my absolute workhorse on orbit in KSP1. They have... What have they done? Have they reached into my profile and figured out what parts I use all the time? Well, obviously not, because I hardly ever use a hammer. But we'll use them here. Stack decoupler, radial decoupler, nose cone, and parachute. So this is all the parts you need to build a basic rocket. Now, want to look at all of them. You got everything down from the lander can. Oh, these are all very... Explorer, tin can. These look very familiar. I think I've seen... I spent a lot of time in the early stages of KSP careers because I like to mess around with the limited part set. We got probes. Remote guidance units. See, I thought the remote guidance units came from an add-on, so I'm glad to see them here. We've got aero cockpits. Oh. Yeah, I like the looks on these. And rovers. Okay, so let's see, fuel tanks. Methalox fuel. Methane. Okay, this is jet fuel. Monoprop for RCS controls. And xenon for our very, very high ISP engines. And hydrogen. Hold on. What? TBD. Ooh. So, a much larger hydrogen fuel tank, and it looks spherical. This looks like it's a lighter than air aircraft. And fuel lines. So we do have fuel lines available. Oh, of course. Everything will be unlocked at this point. So, looking at engines, let's start from the bottom. Hydrogen engines. Okay, so these are nuclear. ISPs 250, 320. But in vacuum, oh my goodness, these are extraordinarily efficient vacuum engines. Xenon is even more efficient, but it's tiny, tiny, tiny. So, xenon for my long range probes, and hydrogen for probably interplanetary stuff. Can we go interstellar? Monoprop, we've got our deep space engine. Okay, so they're not putting RCS in here. So this is actually a monoprop-based thruster. Oh. Okay, well, ISP is still decent. What's the thrust on this? This is 9.6 kilonewtons. So 75, 700. Yeah, okay, so jet engines. These are going to have extraordinarily high ISP, and they're going to be air breathing. So the Goliath, this is the engine for our ultra long range air. I will probably do more aircraft in KSP2 than I did in KSP1. Boosters. Okay, Sepratron. Yes, yay. And the launch escape system, LES and Sepratrons are here. I was worried. Not a lot, but I was worried a little. So we got the very large SRB and the smaller SRB, and then we've got the cans and such. Okay. And Methalox are our workhorse engines. So, Spark, I can see. Yeah, there's some of these that are just going to jump out at me. Spark is the one I like to use for medium-sized comsats. Ants are great, you know, as long as your satellite isn't too big. There's our workhorse engine. The swivel, I like this as a sustainer. I like this as a, you're up at 20 kilometers, you want to get to orbit, you want to circularize. This is great for it. Although, you know, once you've gotten there, you want to turn over most of your circularization to the carrier. Now for boosting upwards, let's see, thud. So yeah, these guys, 283.20, 173.35, these guys you don't want to be doing in atmosphere. The Reliant, so the Reliant is lower ISP than the swivel, but higher thrust. Okay, so in a multiple liquid stage thing, you might use Reliant engines to get yourself, get your apoapsis out there. As Vector, so the Vector is another sustainer. Oh, thrust. Haha, yeah, look at the thrust difference. So here we're running around 200 kilonewtons thrust, 180, 220, and now suddenly we're up at 760. So the Vector is a huge, huge thrust engine. The mass is larger. Aerospikes. Okay. Skipper, if I know that name. Skipper and Poodle. Larger sustainers, again thrust in the 500, 600 range. Poodle steps back down to the lower thrust. So the Poodle is larger scale on orbit, but so 100 to 200. Probably use the swivel more often than I'll use the Poodle, frankly. Mainsail, huge thrust. There's a rocket engine. Hold on. What does it say here? Shift view more. How do I get that to stay up there? Okay, we can place it and we can look at it. What I want to do is I want to see the pop-up. Okay, left click brings the engine up. Nothing. Yeah, okay, so they have this panel that comes up here that says REM3 mainsail, blah de blah de blah, and clearly I need to look at that text. It says shift to view more, and I'm not seeing it. Okay, so potentially a problem. Okay, so go from there up to the Rhino and the Mammoth 2. These are all launchers. Notice that the mainsail, it doesn't say whether it's a launch or sustain. I guess if you're using a name, and a Labradoodle. Oh. So this is huge ISP in space, pretty good thrust. So good variety of engines. What I'll be doing early on, we'll just stick with the Terrier and the swivel. Let's see, structures. We've got. I basically just have to look at this and see what we've got here. Trusses, adapters, resizers, tubes. Okay. Coupling. We've got the stack decouplers like the TD12 and so on. This is my workhorse. We've got these. We've got separators. Okay, so the decoupler, lower stage, upper stage decoupler. So the decoupler goes with the lower stage. Separator doesn't go with either one. So you got the upper stage and lower stage, and they both split away, and the separator is not attached to either one of them. This is neat if you've got a launch craft and a satellite that's launching. So now the separator doesn't attach to either one. This means you can do things like launch stage and then satellite. You separators in there, and you don't end up with separator craft on any of your satellites. Bada boom. Radial decouplers, we've got the full suite. We've got it's a radial decoupler designed for jets and space planes, slanted and highly streamlined. That is a cool look. Well, that's neat. I've never seen one of those. Okay, so there's our workhorse, and then we've got the medium and large and extra large. I have used the radial decoupler manifolds in KSP1 in the far past. Currently, I am focusing on smaller craft, and I haven't yet stepped away from the 38K. Docking ports. Extra small, small, medium, large, extra large. So we've got a docking port of each size. And they have various masses, and they've got nothing really special about any of those. Yeah, okay. Payloads. Fairings, cargo bays. Okay, so may fiddle around with fairings. Don't do that much in KSP1. In fact, in KSP1 things that I'm doing these days, I only have one quote fairing unquote. It's a engine plate. It's just a tube of fixed length and blah. Trusses. You know, I am not sure what they use trusses for. I'm sure it will make sense. Aerodynamics. We've got nose cones. We've got jet intakes. We have small, medium, large wings, and apparently this is all, you place it and then you set the size. So, and stabilizers. So, wings. Control is everywhere. So these have control authority, and control surfaces are just authority. So we've got, okay, so our three things here are fixed wing, a wing with a control surface, and just a control surface, I think. We'll have to try these out and find out. Got tail sections, straight and slanted. Ground. Bandicoot. I use that one a lot. The Wallaroo I have used in KSP1. Maybe not under that name. This is... Oh, this is the other one. Okay, so this and this are the ones I use. This is new. I've seen it. I like it. I will be using it for my large stuff. Landing gear. These two are these two you start with early on in KSP1, and that's what I open up eventually. And now I've got the larger ones, which I don't remember using, but I don't do a lot of aircraft in KSP1. Wheels. We've got wheels of each size. Cool, cool. Thermal shields. Nothing exciting. Batteries. I'm really disappointed if this one isn't nice and colorful. Okay, this is I am going to want to change the colors on these guys because I like my battery packs to be nice and colorful. Blink, blink. Okay. I see people have been watching. Okay. Anyway, so electrical, cool. We have solar arrays of various sorts. We have generators. Antennas, the usual flock. We've got some additional ones. Some of these look familiar. I think this may be a new geometry. I'm not sure. And parachutes. Parachutes. Okay, so RCS comes in under utility. So parachutes and stabilizers. Okay, these were under the control area, so they're now here under utility. Lights and ladders. Okay, so summary of that is I think we have mostly the same parts available to us right now. So I'm going to build something. I want to go to orbit. I'm going to assume that somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 delta V. I'm going to get myself a upper stage that has some space maneuverability. Maybe 1,000 delta V to do a circularization and mess around a bit. And then a launch thing, which would be a couple thousand delta V. So let's start off with a pod. Boom, boom, boom. Here is my pod. Now, you notice the color scheme that I chose is brown and blue. So just like colors on the nav ball, blue side goes up. There's the pod. And let's put a parachute on this. And because I want to fiddle around with it, I'm going to put a landing gear. Here's our door. So I want to do a three-way symmetry opposite the door. There. Okay. Now, can I adjust the position on this? I can rotate and I can assembly anchor is something very different. So rotate and translate. Let's start off by rotating. I'm going to want to pull this in and... Actually, no, I don't really want to rotate it. I just want to offset it. Offset it into here. There. Okay, so shift allows me to move on a finer grid. I'm not going to go full clipping on this. I'll leave the whole thing exposed out here. Okay. So there's my landing gear. And we're going to need some heat shield. I don't have any heat shields on my favorites list, so let's go down to utility and grab a heat shield. Oh, no, it's not on there. It is on thermal. Okay, so now we have a heat shield and landing gear and a parachute. So there is our landing configuration. So now we go to couplers. Oh, let's see if we can do it with this. Stack decoupler. Looks good. Below that we're going to need some fuel and an engine. So, let's see. FLT 200. And what does that get me? This should get me. Okay, this is 1,278 meters per second of delta V. That should be enough to circularize at, well, let's aim for 120 kilometers. That should be enough to circularize 120. I'm guessing. I'm gonna overpower this guy just a little bit here and there. Why not? Okay, so there's that stage. And now we toss on another decoupler. And now we need an engine that'll perform well in the upper atmosphere. So fuel tanks, 400 tank. And where's my trusty swivel? Okay, so how do I get the delta V for just this stage? Well, I can do this. That's 1,278. That's 2,300. So this is another 1,000. That's good. I am looking for the delta V and the thrust to weight ratio for each stage. I really want this. Center of thrust, center of mass, center of pressure. Okay, all this sorts of stuff. Trip planner. Round trip, Kerbal to Mun. Okay, so it's giving me trip estimates. I think not. I love it. Okay, so this is the sort of information I would normally have gone to my printed paper copy of this to figure out what's going on. And this says that a Mun round trip is going to be 10K delta V, but you notice that it doesn't take into account the fact that when I leave Mun from low orbit, the intercept, getting back to Kerbal, I can aero brake, so I can knock off another 4,000 from this estimate and do it. So this doesn't, so the round trip planner doesn't know about aero braking, and it labels this as Mun intercept, which is returning from Mun intercept. So this is Mun surface, we're landing here, we're taking off, we're circularizing in low orbit, rather than unintercepting. No, this is Mun surface to orbit, this is low orbit to getting out to the SOI, this is attaining the intercept at Kerbal. Okay, so yeah, the wording here could be changed. Going out and coming back are different. So I will probably still use my printed paper. Clear results. So the trip planner doesn't do what I thought it was going to do. Action groups and Kerbals. Oh! There we go. There goes our delta V. It is not giving us our thrust to weight ratios, so I don't know if this has enough thrust to lift this guy. Almost, but not quite. Okay. So, yay, we've got delta V per stage. We don't have thrust to weight ratio per stage. So what I have to do here is I have to look at my mass and my engine thrust. I don't see a quick way of getting the mass of the vehicle and the engine thrust together. So right-clicking on this does nothing. So we would have to go back to here and see that I have, well, this guy has, call it 200 kilonewtons of thrust. Kilonewton is a ton meter per second. So I need 10 meters per second times our mass, and our total mass is currently what? Engineer's report. Total mass is 6 tons, so I need, I'll call it 7 tons by gravity is less than 10, so this is 70 ton meters per second. And I have 188. So this tells me that I'm running to about 2.5 thrust to weight ratio. Bada bing. Okay. Now the next stage is going to be what gets me off the ground. Let's put a solid rocket stage on this sucker. Here is our... So our door is here. I'm not sure which way is head up on this guy. I'm going to assume... this is my orientation. Yeah, which way is up on this capsule? Is this window up, down, left, or right? We'll have to see once we get it, once we get out to the launch pad. Okay, so next thing is we need boosters. Engines with the lock, solid fuel boosters. There's the hammer. The hammer has quite a bit of thrust. So I'm thinking 2 of these guys. And we're going to mount them radially. So couplers, and we're going to take our small couplers and we're going to go to symmetry. And I'm going to put them on the sides here. I'm going to arbitrarily assume that those are sides. And we're going to couple this on here. And we're going to put some aerodynamics on them. Nose cone, small nose cone, boom, like that. Oh, wait a minute. Let's use this small nose cone, just like that. I'm not so sure I like the brown and blue color scheme, frankly. Yeah. Color manager. My base color is going to be... How about a blue... Could I do blue and cyan? Apply to assembly. Okay, so we can apply it. So you set the color. Yeah, you're gonna have multiple assemblies. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. But let's make my accent something a little more. Go fast stripes. It's kind of dark. Let's lighten up this blue. Let's make a nice bright primary colors. seems kind of... good enough. Better than brown. How do I get rid of the color manager? How do I get rid of the color manager? Oh boy. Okay, so once I have the color manager up, it's not going away. Anyway, let's take a look at our staging here. We've got our solid rocket boosters here, which have 979 delta V, and they're done. And then we've got our rocket engine here, which is another 1094. I'm going to burn these two together. And I think I need more fuel than this. Oh, okay. Just select the other. Yeah. Let's change this up. I'm going to swap fuel tanks. I'm going to go for the bigger fuel tank. And we're going to put this down near the bottom. Now, there was an engineer's report I had up here. Vessel is missing RCS. Precision maneuvering for docking will be difficult. Well, I'm not going to be docking. So total mass is 16.27. Again, I have to do the math in my head to figure out what my thrust-weight ratio is. But this does mean that I've got 1,200 delta V in launch configuration, another 1,200 in the next configuration up. So when these guys go away, my main engine's going to fire for another 1,000. What? What? How has it moved all the delta V up there? It's claiming that my solid engines have... Okay, let's check this. That's my engine down there. Those are those engines up there. Then we stage this. We stage there. There's that engine. And we stage. Let's move this engine down into here. That goes away. And we stage there. And then we activate there. So this is proper staging. The delta V numbers are messed up. So delta V's got a bug. But I have seen KSP1 have the same problem. Usually it comes down to I've confused somebody somewhere, or I have the engine disabled or something. Let's take a look at this. We do not have the thrust limiter. We don't have an independent throttle. We are fueled. We are fueled. I wonder if it's because of the way I pulled things together. Let's pull this off and pull that off. Okay, so here we are. In fact, let's build this up from scratch again. There's our top thingy. Now this is showing no delta V. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to just assume my delta V is okay, and we're going to package this stuff back up together. We need to grab our engine again. Toss a swivel on there, and a radial decoupler. A couple of these down low. And now we go grab our solid fuel booster. Got 2 of those. And let's see, nose cones, small. Blink, blink. Engines, there, okay. Going to move my main engine down so everybody fires at the beginning, and then we have our main engine firing, and then we have this stage goes away. We decouple there and run this engine and decouple, and then we can come in. This should get me to orbit. However, it's only this much DV, so clearly I don't have enough delta V. I'm going to fly this, and we'll see how far we get. We may or may not get into orbit. We may or may not be able to get back out. Let's see where this goes. I will make sure to reserve enough fuel to come back down from whatever suborbital thing we get. Let's launch. So we're launching Bill. We are at full throttle. I am going to point ourselves prograde with SAS. Well, can't do that till we get up there. My first real launch at KSP2. Woo! Okay. G-meter's running their upper edge of the green, so we're good. I am going to tilt this over to begin a bit of a grav turn, and then we're just going to boost prograde. In theory, the best grav turns are purely prograde. The question is, did I tilt over soon enough, far enough? And the answer is probably no, so let's going. Oh, our apoapsis is already. Yeah, I messed up the gravity turn. Gravity did not turn us as fast as I wanted. Yeah, with the apoapsis up at 164, can I revert to launch? I'm going to revert to launch to try this again. So, gravity turns sooner. Okay, Bill, you and me, try this again. So, SAS for stability, full throttle, bring it up, and I'm going to sneak it over a little bit, and now do prograde. Stage down. Because Apoapsis is already cranking up there. Yeah, gravity turns can be a lot more gentle than this. Yeah, apparently I have a lot of thrust early on. Apoapsis is still looking good. I'm going to sneak my throttle up a little bit to get myself some control. So, create a maneuver plan that gets us a circular orbit. Okay, that circularizes. This requires 1800 delta V, which is going to be most of the rest of my fuel. That's all right. Okay, here we go. Just like training. So actually, this is not a good one. Hold on. Yeah, I blew it building that maneuver node, didn't I? Yeah, I didn't actually look at my result of that maneuver node other than to say, oh yeah, this places us halfway between periapsis and apoapsis. So, we're going to try this again. So, I think the rocket still is underpowered. But let's see here. SAS control active for just stability, and we're going to do this by hand a little bit. And I need to bring it over faster, as I've got much more thrust than I had. Much more thrust than I anticipated. Attack here. So I think I'm a little over thrusted. Oh, that's better. So at 10,000 meters, my apoapsis is crossing 45. That looks good. Let's go to prograde. And I will cut the throttle when our apoapsis gets up to 80. Now we can create our maneuver node. Okay, so we've got a couple of minutes here. Let's get this inflated to a circular orbit if I can. So this gets me a periapsis of what? What is going on here? Why is this? I want to see what my periapsis is going to be. I want to hold that on the screen there. 62. Running out of time. Okay, well, we're gonna have to go with that. That seemed weird. I thought I was burning horizontally, and it ended up in a kind of a skewed orbit there. 72, good enough. Maybe a little bit more. There. 6. Here we go. 2, 1. We're gonna have to stage in the middle of this. Oh, I'm gonna run out of fuel. Four, three, two, one. So if I did it by time, I'd already be done because the engine changed and the time is wrong. Okay, so kind of a screwy orbit, but I got there. And I have 89 Delta V left to come home in. Haha, that's not right. Okay. So we've learned something. We've learned that dropping that maneuver node right at my apoapsis there and trying to circularize it isn't really a great idea. Probably better just to fly that one manually. But I do need more Delta V if I'm going to do this right. Which means either we can beef up this middle stage with more fuel. Well, now see, come back here and it suddenly says I have plenty of Delta V to do this. Let's add more fuel in just in case. So that increased our Delta V. It's going to reduce the amount of acceleration we get early on. That's okay. And what we're going to do now is go ahead and launch this. So this time I'm not going to fiddle around with not going to fiddle around with the maneuver node. I'm just going to circularize my orbit manually. got SAS set to help stabilize me, and I'm going to keep a nice aggressive angle of attack. I'm thinking 3 to 5 degrees. And now I'm just going to switch to prograde. Get my apoapsis to 80 kilometers and cut throttle. Close enough. Whee! Okay, so apoapsis is in a minute and a half. I will be attempting to circularize manually, because I'm that kind of crazy. I am going to do the whole thing on the map screen so I can see what's going on. We are using the SAS to the prograde orbit. And what I would try to do is keep my ETA at apoapsis at about 30 seconds. So we are headed at heading up to 89 degrees, so 90 would be to the right. And I've got our orbital velocity shown, and I've got our sea level here. And there we go. So looking for 30 to 35 seconds. I can throttle back when it gets higher. I'm totally focused right now on the orbital information in the lower left-hand corner. Throttling back as my apoapsis ETA gets farther away. And then letting it come back in. This would be a great thing to write up as a controller to just automatically adjust the throttle based on the ETA to apoapsis. Oop, and there is my stage done. Notice by keeping myself fairly close to apoapsis, it's not going to make my apoapsis go up very much as I thrust. But when I do fall behind, it does inflate it a bit. So we're going to end up around 90 kilometers as our orbit. That's all right. And we still have quite a lot of Delta V available because I added extra stuff. Not quite there yet. Getting really close. Periapsis is up above the ground. Halfway up the atmosphere. So if we stop now, we would re-enter gracefully. very, very low thrust right now. We're trying to just ease our periapsis up out of the atmosphere. I want to get it circular. Very low thrust. In fact, let's cut throttle entirely until we get to the apoapsis. And I'm just going to smack it hard when I get to the apoapsis point to get myself circularized. Maybe at the 10-second point, we'll lift it up a bit. Okay, and with the last moments we get this, our apoapsis and periapsis are going to swing around. Okay, overshot just a little bit. That's alright. So this is a nice orbit. I like this. We have attained orbit in KSP2. Yay! Let's take a look at the world around us. Sunsets. There's Mun. We're going to need quite a lot more delta V when we're going to Mun. So, pack your bags, boys. What do I do next? Let's see if we can get re-entered here. Oh, let's... Oh, okay, there's the SOI of Kerbal. We have other planets to go to. So this is basically the same solar system as KSP-1. We've got Duna and Drez and Paul and Elu. And then inside we've got Eve and Moho. All great destinations. And as I scroll out farther and farther, here is the SOI of Kerbal itself. Oh, Kerbal. And that is our solar system. I don't think anything else exists outside that quite yet. Going interstellar is something for later. Colonies are something for later. So I think our next mission is going to be getting us onto Mun. Let's do a re-entry here. I want to bring us down somewhere in the water. And I'm going to do my usual trick with coming down to 30 kilometers and letting aerobraking do it. I think 90 degrees out. Let's see. Create a maneuver plan here. Let's see if I can do a re-entry burn using a maneuver plan. This periapsis needs to come down. You know what I think I'm going to do? I'm just not going to use the maneuver burns for this. I'll just do it by freehand. So time warped there. And we are going to burn retrograde when we get there. So, I remember hearing that we could warp while doing maneuvers, warp while burning. Apparently, SAS doesn't activate while you're in time warp. So while I'm in time warp, I didn't start moving until I got out of time warp. That's okay. We are pointed retrograde. And now I'm going to burn retrograde until my periapsis is at 35 kilometers. Good enough. A little low. Now I was hoping to get a water entry, so let's bring it down. Yeah, I'm just gonna eyeball this. Whoops, too far. Well, at least we know we're going to be in the water. We may be in the water sooner. So let's time warp to here and see how we're doing. So they reduced my time warp here as my... So I'm in a 4x warp. I'm in atmosphere now. As the atmosphere slows me down, our impact point is going to be brought in. Now he lowered me all the way down to 1x at this point. I have a choice to make. I could burn the remainder of my fuel to slow down, or I could jettison what I've got. I think what I'm going to do is wait until I'm clearly over ocean, out here somewhere, and I got to burn the rest of my fuel retrograde. I have 771 meters per second of fuel. My surface relative velocity is 2,000. Yeah, let's do this. So the plume like this shows that we're still above still in rare atmosphere. As the atmosphere gets denser, this plume is not going to be so wide. And that's actually why engines have better efficiency at high altitude when they're built longer. So different exhaust angles at different altitudes is what makes engines behave differently. Okay, so we're out of fuel. And now we're on a launch configuration. Now I could have brought myself down on land and used the landing legs. I originally planned on maybe having to do that. We've got the heat shield, we've got the parachute, we've got the landing legs, we're all ready to go. If we're going to come down on water, I'll just leave the legs alone. If we're going to come down on land, which we're probably not, we would need the legs. What's that auto ground? I don't know what it just did, but something at 30 Ks, but I'm thinking it said auto ground. So parachutes, they told me, were between 2,000 and 20,000 feet, or meters. I'm going to wait until I'm a little bit low and my surface velocity gets low. So I've switched my velocity back from orbital to surface. I think it's too bad that my joysticks aren't working. That would have been a lot funner to fly. So flight report says altitude, highest speed over land. Must be close to land. Highest G-force experience, 234.1 Gs. I doubt it. Oh, so you can revert to launch right there from the flight report. Okay. Parts manager. Fuel resources. Okay. Oh, I need to pop my parachute, don't I? Almost forgot. Now, G should... I don't know, maybe having my landing gear out will help the water. I did get my parachute out in time, though. Okay, Bill. Map, tracking station, flight. Vessel actions. So we have brakes. We have lights that we can turn on and off. Oh, there's Bill. Okay, so the window is up. The window is the head direction of the Kerbal. We'll remember that. I've got my landing gear stapled on to be clear of the door. I can retract them or extend them. Solar panels, I don't have any, and abort, I'm not sure what abort does. On a larger rocket, you would hook that up to a launch abort system. You would hook it up to logic that says, oh, we want to come home. Oh, we want to discard all the things that are about to explode. Okay, so the water is much more convincing, but we are floating below the water surface. So they need to do something about their floating logic, because we should be bobbing around on the surface rather than underneath it. And we should be able to do a recovery. How do I recover a vessel? We've landed. We can revert. We have landed. I'm not sure whether Bill wants to go EVA in the water or not. Hey Bill, you're in a spacesuit underwater. How do I get back in? Okay, that's the other thing, is how do I get Bill back inside once I've gone EVA? Inactive crash course, fly safe 1 on board. Oh, there we go, board. So if you're floating in the water, you are on a crashing trajectory. Flight in progress. It's not giving me a recovery of any sort. If I go to the tracking station, find any tracked object here. So control and focus. Fly safe. Oh, there we go. So you go back to the control area and you hit recover. That works. Vessel recovered. Not bad, not bad at all. And, oh, it gave me a revert to launch even after I recovered it. Cool. So, colonies. We don't really have colonies yet. We've got debris in orbit, which we're going to destroy. Oh, I've got a co-pilot who's being chatty. And she wanted attention But apparently she didn't really want to be picked up. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? I think she's saying it's time for me to go get some lunch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get some lunch, and I will start a new stream afterwards. And I think my next thing is to head to the moon. So next stream. Bye for now.